Hi, hello everybody. Happy New Year and welcome back to Poetcast Unleashed, where I have the great pleasure of sitting down to interview some of our poets in the English speaking poetry community. We talk with regulars about life, how they started poetry, what they're inspired by, all sorts of stuff. And today, my guest is one of these regulars. It is Christian. Hello. Hi, Christian.
Hey there.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay. You want to jump right into it?
Yeah, sure.
When did you start with poetry? Why are you a poet?
You mean reading or writing?
Writing.
Okay.
Or both. I mean, if I guess they're connected.
I think certainly it's something that I'm getting more and more aware of now. The more that I get into writing as something, as a worthwhile activity, existentially speaking, I think I'm sort of getting more and more into the fact that the reason that I write now, at this point in my life, almost certainly has something to do with that I've just always read a lot of stuff. Um, Okay, poetry. I think as with many people that I discuss who don't really engage with poetry that much, for a very long time, for most of my life, it wasn't really anything that I found very interesting, to be honest, because I thought I guess first of all, I thought that it had to rhyme,
Mm,
and the fact that poetry, especially when it turns into prose poetry, which is what I mainly do, um, then then I sort of started understanding that poetry is a sort of using language to take photographs in a way, and that's when I found poetry very interesting. And also because I was at this point when I started doing poetry, which is about a year and a half ago. Because until then, I've written most of my life, but it was mainly prose, and it was mostly out of a very ill-fated idea that, oh, okay, so if you write novels, of course.
mm,
So for some reason, this is what, this is how I started, not with the idea that no, Yamesa, you can write something that is a work, but it has to be very long and it
mm,
has to be sellable or
mm,
something like that. But as soon as I got into poetry, and I was like, oh, okay, I can write something very concise and I can write something in a style that suits me. So again, my stuff barely ever rhymes, and if it does, it's almost it's certainly to make something mundane seem extraordinary.
right.
For me, there's something inherently serendipitous about rhymes, where the fact that it's sort of like even in the way that I write, the rhyme is there to sort of highlight something.
Mm.
It's not meant as the basis of the entire form itself that it rhymes. Um, so I started writing what I would say were some sort of photographic things. And by that, I mean the way that writing, even just like journal writing, is a way to make this onslaught of experience that we call life to sort of make it make sense in a way. That is the that is the therapeutic origin for me in writing poetry, to make my experiences seem not worthwhile, but certainly to make them seem coherent, which of course they're not. But it's a nice way to make them seem coherent. So that's how I started.
May I interject here?
Yes.
Because I've heard that a lot interviewing poets from our community that poetry helps life. It's almost as I don't know what the right metaphor is, but it's almost like a recipe after the fact. A recipe sounds so harsh and so sort of
Reflection, maybe.
what? Sorry.
Maybe it's more of a reflection than a recipe.
a reflection, yes, but also like a TV guide, sort of. I'm thinking of like the written artifact. What does it compare to? Because many of us use, we might do actual therapy, but we still do poetry as a therapeutic exercise to make sense of things. I know that the most sort of neurotically ruminating people I know in my life are the people who don't have the ability to externalize their voice and to
Yeah.
manifest their thoughts into ink, as it were. You know what I mean? As soon
Mhm.
as you
Yeah.
see your thoughts on paper, there's a lightness to it. There's a burden that can be lifted off of your shoulders, or you can see how ridiculous
Mhm.
the dangers were.
I mean, that's an interesting point. I guess for me, um, so it's been a while since I went to therapy, but I did do it quite a lot for a while for
Mm,
different reasons. And I mean, for very good reasons. I was in the hospital due to medical issues in my brain. So again, therapy was, of course, it was very useful in that context. To me, at least, talking therapy in the classic sense, it is a reflection machine, as far as you ask me. It's something about, the call and response. My own neuroticism is always, what was it my uncle described it as? It's basically just a mirror reflecting a ball of light onto itself forever.
okay. Right.
That is
Mm.
proper neuroticism. It is rumination that feels like locomotion, but it's not. You're just
Right.
rocking back and
Yes.
forth,
Yes. Yes.
quite possibly holding your knees quite tightly.
Yeah.
And the paper or the therapist or the friend or the tree or whatever is a way to sort of let your thoughts, which again, I am very suspicious of language. I know it's incredibly useful, obviously.
Mm.
Um, but my God, how it leads me to sort of mental traps quite often.
Sure.
Quite often.
I'm reminded of like that quote with a mathematician is a blind man looking for a
Mhm.
black cat, which isn't there.
Okay.
That sort of that the reflection, sort of what you put out is what comes back to you, which is something that is psychologically true. You know, we are um, defined by how we think. Even the Buddha said that we are our thoughts. You know, our existence is our thought, which is something that's so hard to understand in this hyper individualistic culture, where we think it's subjectivity all the way down. We think we
Ah,
all have the same amount of willpower. We all think that willpower is really all that we are. Willpower
yeah.
will always supersede genetics or um,
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Or like, or psychological dispositions, or so on and so forth, where it's like, no, you are so much more. Like, remember, in this world, you are also a creature. You know what I mean? You are an animal.
You're almost making it sound like creature in the Dungeons and Dragons sense, where
Mhm.
where a creature is just every kind of biological being, which I actually think is very insightful of you.
Thank
I
you
would
very
agree.
much. I'm very glad you mentioned that because I've always liked to think of or an aspect of psychology uh, inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. All human beings have character sheets. And if you start examining your life, you start to examine, well, how many points do I have in willpower? How many points do I have
Mhm.
in intelligence, contra wisdom,
Yes.
contra strength,
Yeah.
contra dexterity, and so on and so forth? And people who do not live these examined lives think that they maxed out on everything, or they might only be aware of certain strengths and certain weaknesses. When you
I'm
write,
not sure.
yeah,
I'm actually not sure about that. I
yeah.
think I would agree with you that your life will possibly be, if not better, at least more interesting if you reflect on it. And that we can probably make a distinction between people who do this by themselves, and by that I just mean reflect on their circumstances, and people that do not. And then the question is, is that lack of reflection. Is that lack of reflection an example of solipsism? As in, like, if I don't reflect on my life, it's probably because no one does, right? In the same way that this happens to me sometimes, because I reflect a lot and maybe even too much on my life sometimes, and I presume that everyone else does the same.
Mm.
And then once in a while, I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. They really don't. They
Yeah.
really, really, really don't. Um, I think there's something to be said for I think there's something to be said for, just to go back to, why writing, and I don't care if it's poetry or if it's journal writing or whatever it is just this, it is this physical manifestation of language trying to encapsulate experience. But experience is actually where it's at. That's actually what's interesting. Um, and there I think that anyone can play in that context.
Mm.
Anyone can experience something. I mean, they do. And then the question is, like, how do you, in your mind, which again, that's dangerous, because you are now trying to make something that cannot be encompassed in the mind. Just to go back to Buddha, I totally get why the Buddhist concept of emptiness is quite scary. It was certainly quite scary for me, because I thought, if I feel empty inside, that is a physical sensation that I know quite well, and I would not like that.
Yeah.
But of course, in the Buddhist context, it's got something to do with that you and I, Nikolai, we can right now basically take a step back and just see. So, I mean, you're looking at a screen, I'm looking at a screen. We are able to, in much the same way that if the screen was our thoughts, we can take a look back and be like, oh shit, thank God it's just a screen, and then realize that our consciousness has this sort of mirror-like clarity to it,
Mm.
and
Mm.
that's emptiness. And I'm pretty sure, like you can get there without any sort of reflection, to be honest.
Yeah. I I think we have to remember that there are different types of nothing, both
Mhm.
uh in the in the Western mystical tradition of Kabbalah. There are three different types of nothingness, right? And there's
Mhm.
also there's a we can understand it by thinking of the number zero, how zero is supposed to represent nothingness in a positive system, but you could
Mhm.
also be able to have the absence of such a positive system, right?
Yes.
So nothingness can be multiple things. Uh, I'm thinking of the Tao that can be described as not the real
Mhm.
Tao, which is this fundamental
Yes.
idea in Eastern mysticism that as soon as we try to put words and concepts on top of uh, what is
Mhm.
starts to disappear and becomes what can be described. It
Yes.
seems incredibly counterintuitive for many people who don't really think philosophically about things. Wittgenstein very much later said that there aren't any philosophical problems, there are only problems of language. And I think he was talking about this concept that we are all glasses. You talk about mirrors. Yes, well, there might be a mirror somewhere hidden at the back, but to get to that mirror, you need to you need to get through lenses and another lens and a third lens and a fourth lens, and it's all you know programming in a certain way.
Nico, may I bring you a book recommendation?
Yes,
May I just get up for just a second
please,
and bring the book?
please, my
Okay.
friend. This is very exciting. This is Poetcast Unleashed at its apex. Whenever we recommend books to each other, this is the this is why people watch this show, is for the book recommendations. Those who
Those who
act
act.
ruin it.
A Taoist account of moral attunement. It came out this year. So, and as you may expect, this is of course a what's his name? Jacob Bender. He is the Huashan Associate Professor of Philosophy at Xijian University in Xi'an. So it is not a Chinese person. I would be surprised with that name at least, but it is a person who, yeah, studies Taoism.
Mm.
Well, to be clear, about the philosophical Taoism.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really important to remember, and this is a point that he sort of makes. This might just be the most salient way to get introduced to the concepts of Taoism that I know of, except for the fact that honestly, like the Taoist books aren't that difficult to read.
Yeah.
They are strange,
Yeah.
but they are quite entertaining. Like the Tao Te Ching is a poetry collection, apropos, like using language to describe the undescribable, and the Zhuangzi, which is sort of the sequel. I have that too. Is this sort of like quite funny short story. I mean, this is a reductive way of putting it, but it's just to say that it's prose,
Mm.
basically.
Mm.
And there we get back to, language. I mean, honestly, language is not a problem. The problem is when um, concepts become crystallized. That's the problem. The problem is when a concept, and by that I just mean any word, is suddenly like, yeah, 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 exactly. That describes it. That's right. Um, because the point is, I think that the Tao that cannot be described, which is to be understood as this way of living your life. And the point is that you become water, so you actually try not to do anything with. You are allowed to do things. The point is not that you should be passive. The point is just that you should start the movement but not identify yourself with it. And now we actually get back into writing. Because for me, I don't know, for a long time I was like, fuck yeah, I'm an existentialist because of Sartre or something like that. But I think I'm getting more and more into Taoism now, also just because I read. No, that's not true. I'm actually missing one. Eh, there's a third one I can't remember, but I've read the first like two works, and I'd be curious what you have to say about this, Nico. But I mean, for me, writing anything, whatever it is, it goes something like this. I have an idea. So, for example, recently I had this notion of a sea turtle. I just had this image of a sea turtle that is born. It cracks open the egg. It goes up, like it digs out of the sand, and it is now on the beach. And in front of it is the sea, and behind it is some sort of biome that would make sense for a sea turtle to be in. And and I was just curious about, okay, so how does the sea turtle know which way to go?
Mm.
And of course, there are certain explanations for that. I don't remember if it was you or if it was someone else who's just like, I believe they have a magnet in their forehead or something. But that's not the point. The point is that I am hvad hedder det, I am curious about, if I started to describe this, what will happen next? This is what the Danish poet Søren Ulrik Thomsen calls the call and response of writing.
Mm.
For him personally, of course, poetry writing. But it's basically just that if I actually sit down, which is difficult enough in itself, if I actually sit down and write the beginning of this, and I now have 3 to 4 sentences in front of me, these sentences are now no longer an idea. They are actually something material in the world, as we described earlier. And I must honestly write the next sentence, which is not mine. It is it is the call and response of me writing a writing sentences, and I know that I'm doing that, of course. But if I can stay in some sort of water-like flow, and I'm not talking about the positive psychology concept of flow, because that's got something to do with productivity, and this is different. then I can write a poem. And I know, because I have friends like you and other people who are quite honest with me if something I've written is not very good. And I can always trace it back to the fact that I was pushing it.
Yeah,
I
forcing it.
was right, and that's the problem. I shouldn't be.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that there's the concept of like the 10,000 hours, the Malcolm Gladwell idea of like if you put your if you understand that you will be an apprentice more so than a master for most of your life, there's there's
Mm.
there's a there's a, an expectation that will be that you'll remove from yourself. Also, the difference between you and someone who doesn't write but wants to is that they don't write but want to. They are afraid it'll be shit. They have these
Yeah.
expectations of it. Their standards don't align with what their hands are, or eyes are capable of doing. Where you
Yeah.
sort
And
of
that's the
you went through the gauntlet. You knew you were bad, and you can look back at bad writing and say, "This I used to be this, but now I'm somewhere else."
I mean, it's certainly something where so here I will have to you know, uh, sit at the altar of Alan Moore and his wisdom,
Yay!
because he said very explicitly, like, when you read something you wrote some while ago, just please be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
So when I just because I've written like what have I written? I've written three quarters of a book and maybe half a book, and I will finish them. But now this sort of poetry thing and this incredibly satisfying process of being able to write something very concise compared to a, let's just say, 100,000 word novel, it's quite addictive to write this way,
Mm.
in the poetic mode, I mean. Um, but anyways, those are things, the like one and a half novel that I've written. When I look back at them, and we're talking about a period of like the last 5 years or something. I think it's fine.
Mm.
It's something where, yes, I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it.
What do you mean? See what?
I can see that. Okay, so just to be very specific, I can see that my sentences are too long,
Mm.
basically.
Mm.
Like something as basic as that. I can see that I don't have the confidence yet to see each sentence as an ingredient or something. I can also see whenever I start a new chapter in one of the books that I'm starting from a point of rigidity, and then usually at some point, which I can actually remember then as I was writing it, that suddenly something interesting happens, and by that I mean something unexpected.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh yeah, okay, so that's where I finally stopped,
Trying.
doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I stopped trying. So that's really nice to see. I would suspect that the editing process, apart from the fact that I need to finish them, but the editing process will basically be, cutting off the chaff. I think.
Yeah. I was thinking of something you mentioned earlier. If we can just jump back to that, and then
Mhm,
I'll have some questions for you. But you said
mhm.
this sometimes you get the idea that because you ruminate, the universe ruminates as well, right?
Did I say that?
Something of the sort. You said that you
Okay, I might have. Sure.
this idea that that uh, the reality you think surrounds you also acts in the ways that you do. And we've talked, you mentioned solipsism, this idea that, oh, well,
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay,
reality
sure. Yeah.
springs forth from my thinking. It is my
Yes.
consciousness, which is the fundamental, basic
Yeah.
thing that exists, and everything sort of comes from my mind, which is something I guess kids can have in the developmental phase. We see it also in like fiction and stuff, but solipsism is something that it's an archaic name for something that many of us nowadays in the West sort of just assume. We assume that our opinions are correct. We assume that our understanding of our own strengths and weaknesses are the correct ones. You are not
Mhm.
supposed to tell me how to think. That's like a thought crime.
Okay.
Don't, and also don't tell me how to raise my kids is also an extension of that. Like,
Okay.
trust that my way of raising kids, even though I may never have done it before, will be the right one for everyone involved, right?
Okay.
Solipsism goes hand in hand with this hyper individualistic aspect of culture that we have right now, that's used to sort of um, uh, commercialize everything and alienate us from what we can actually do with our time and our hands. Um, but I was kind of stuck with this thing that, well, if I ruminate, then the universe must ruminate as well. Where I have this theory of intelligence. I would love to write a book about stupidity one day.
Mhm.
And I thought at first it was going to be a book about intelligence, but I had an old father and I was like, there's so many books on intelligence. Why don't you write it about stupidity instead? Which is just perfect because I have the what I've written now and I just put a not in front of most of the sentences and it works. You know what I mean? But my
Yes.
theory of intelligence is this: when you become more intelligent, and
Yes.
that is a loaded sort of
Yes.
concept. What does intelligence really mean?
Yes.
How does one? But if we take an example, as you learn French, do you know French, Christian?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to get more into French. You have
Mhm.
now a certain level of knowledge of the language of French, but you are absolutely sure that if you learn French, you will become smarter in some way. What
Okay.
happens then is, number one, you start to pick out more French things in the universe. The universe will start responding to you in French. This also goes for if you studied astrophysics or
Mhm.
fishing, right? If you took a subject and you started digging into it, you would start picking up on more cues. The universe would sort of talk back to you in fishing terms, right? You'd say, oh, this is just like catching bass, or this is just like building a rocket, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to say something. I can see it.
I think so. For me right now, this is just to sort of clear something up about
Yeah,
what I said earlier, if I may. Is that
go
okay?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Um, it's very important for me not to be misunderstood that I believe in things like manifesting, like in a
Mm-hmm.
sort of the secret kind of
Sure.
way,
Yeah.
because I believe that is magical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and honestly, extremely dangerous magical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
to put it bluntly. I guess what you're describing there is, I would imagine, like, yes, that we as a self, because we do have a self.
Is that not
Um,
magical thinking?
excuse me?
Is a self not magical thinking?
It's certainly a concept, but all I'm saying is that you do have certain grooves in your brain that are unique to you based on your previous experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and I have some grooves in my brain that are specific to my experiences. And it is, of course, and you made this point already, it is very important to remember that we do not see the world; we see the world from our perspective.
Mm.
And I believe Sam Harris said, the thoughts you have in your mind, they are out here in the physical world like everything else.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sort of a
so all I'm saying,
platonic
excuse me.
that's sort of like a platonic ideal view of metaphysics, is that, oh, well, your thoughts aren't inside of your head. I'd say the science is still out. We don't really know where
No, no,
exactly
no.
thoughts
And
are.
honestly, you're right, of course, and that's a fair point. It's just, you know, I was looking for a teapot for a while, and then one day I found a teapot in a recycling station. What happened there is that yes, I was intent on finding a teapot. That means that, my sort of cognitive processes had teapots on their mind. When I find the teapot in the recycling station, that is not the universe giving me a teapot. That is me having made a conscious decision to be aware of teapots.
Mm.
And as soon as I see one, I'm like, holy crap. But just, so this is just, I really don't hope that I made it sound like solipsism is an argument for the concept of manifesting. because in the same way that French suddenly shows up everywhere, well,
Yeah.
yes, of course it does. Why in the world shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're learning French. It's
Yeah.
on your mind a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, it will filter through the grooves that are being etched into your brain during that very process.
Mm.
So that's all I'm saying. And I hope this doesn't deconstruct anything you were about
No,
to
not
say.
at
That's
all. Not at all.
really
I
not
mean,
my
what
intention.
we could have another podcast about what does manifesting actually mean. Some people really want to believe the magical thinking view
Yes,
of it instead of just
yes,
saying that, well, how much do we actually know about the human mind? How much do we know about how easy it is to convince ourselves and other people of XYZ?
yes,
What I'm trying to say with my theory of intelligence, the first part is that as soon as you start taking French, you will
yes,
recognize French, right?
yes.
And being poetic about it, the universe will start speaking French to you.
Okay.
So you and the universe, or you or the reality in which you occupy space and time, you have your
Mhm.
little allotted parking space in the universe around you. You will grow together because you will recognize your own ability to understand French by what's going on outside of you. The storefront with the French poster might always have been there, but you've
Yeah.
passed without understanding what it meant. But now all of a sudden you do. So you and the universe around you grows. But on the other hand,
But the universe is unchanged, surely. The universe does not grow. The universe just
what are
is.
you talking? That's not true. That's one of the that's one of the laws of physics. Everything changes all the time. That's entropy.
No, no, no. I know that, but you just used the example of walking past a poster with some French on it
Yeah.
that you were not able to recognize until
Yeah.
you learned French.
Yeah.
The poster was there.
Yes.
So again, it's just to say that it is from this um, the universe. It's just I don't know. I don't think I would say that the universe has changed.
Well, okay, but what if I was the poster? What if
Mhm.
I kept talking French to you and then all of a sudden you understand me? Then surely something must have changed. Or I all of a sudden, from one day to the other, started talking French to you. The universe changes all the time, right?
But are we talking about natural phenomena now?
Well, you are in it. You, as the universe, you might be in it, but you're still a part of the universe. So something has changed.
Something has changed, yes, but it's your perception of it.
Okay.
The universe is just there,
Isn't
but your
that,
perception of it makes it moldable and makes certain things stand out in your awareness in
yeah.
different ways. The universe is just there, as far as I can tell.
But the universe, if you make it sound like it's wallpaper instead of the plants growing in the pots.
No, no, no. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's static. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that it is there. It
Yeah.
is not talking to you. You are
Yeah.
perceiving that it is talking to you. That is all of
You are a solipsist.
the
You really are a solipsist, huh?
I think I'm just trying to be very clear on the reaches of what I personally can fathom
Yeah.
as a biological being in this body with this brain and so on and so forth. So it
Yeah.
is certainly based on the notion that if I were a bat
Yeah.
or if I were a cat or a dog, I would be experiencing something unbelievably different
Yeah.
than what I'm experiencing right now. So it is, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I sort of am, but it is with the knowledge that I don't see how I could go beyond this.
Yeah.
I am trying my best, you know,
Yeah.
and this is why I find poetry useful. It's why meditation in moderation can be useful because it allows me to sort of disconnect as much as I possibly can from my thought processes.
Yeah.
But there is nowhere to transcend to, I believe.
Okay. Well, if we assume you were born, just this is just an example, right? If
Mhm,
we
mhm,
assume you were born 100 years prior,
mhm.
you probably would be different, would you not? There probably a lot of science fiction you wouldn't have read, which you've read now. I believe science fiction is the best and clearest way of seeing. Well, this is how our imagination
Yes,
both can evolve, right?
yes,
Your individual imagination, you are able to think about concepts that would have been unfathomable for you to
That
understand
is
just 20
correct.
years
Yes.
prior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And listen, and 100 years ago, Ursula K. Le Guin's hvad hedder det, translation of the Tao Te Ching would not exist. So yeah, yeah. But I guess I'm just trying to really acknowledge, and I really mean this. I'm really trying to acknowledge that whatever I'm experiencing right now is the consequence of a trillion variables that are completely beyond my control. This does not make me feel claustrophobic, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Right.
It's just the recognition of this is where I begin from. Because yes, the point you're making is completely correct.
Yeah.
I would be a very different person if I was born in 1891. I
Yeah.
certainly would. Yes,
Do
yes,
you
I
ever
would be
role
completely
play?
different.
Do you ever wake up in the morning and then role play that you are Christian 100 years from now?
Uh, that's a good question. It's certainly something I think about a lot. Yes.
Okay.
It's something I think about all the time. Yes.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Listen, just to finish my point with the intelligence, one thing,
Yeah, sorry that I interrupted.
so the idea is that as you grow smarter, the universe sort of grows with you in a certain sense, because it's not you can't just be intelligent in a vacuum. The intelligence sort of needs to feed off of other things there. And yes, the post in French might always have been there, but now it talks to you, which it didn't do before. It was a static sort of dead thing, and now it talks to you. On the other hand, what happens is that the more things you learn, the more French languages you learn, the more you sort of isolate yourself and make yourself more idiosyncratic as a thinking being, because you'll start to accrue knowledge that, or a combination of knowledge that only you have. You're only the one who has thought of these things in this particular way because of
Mhm.
when you did it and where you did it and how you
Yeah.
did it and who taught you and so on and so forth. So there's also an isolating aspect of becoming more smarter. There are more groups of people you won't able to, you can't no longer say, oh, I'm part of the group of people that don't speak French, right?
Mhm.
And then, oh, I'm not longer part of the group who doesn't speak French, does no fishing, and does no rocket science. You sort of become smaller and smaller in a certain way. You become more and more, if not yourself, then sort of separated from everything else that's going on around you. The less you know, the more fit, the more places you fit in a certain way, which is also kind of what Socrates says when he says
Mhm.
that the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. He says
Yes.
that allow me to not know so I can fit in so many places as possible, so I can be part and have discussions that I otherwise wouldn't be able to have. If I was like a doula, someone who helps with childbirth in a very specific way, and you
Mhm.
started to say, well, imagine childbirth, and then you came up with this sort of analogy or use it as a metaphor, I could very easily sit there and sort of be like, but you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you can't, that's not how it works. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
And so as philosophers, both you and I studied it and sort of are interested in it in our
No,
daily
sorry.
life. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I
No,
haven't
okay.
studied philosophy. I just read a lot.
Well, okay, so you've self-studied. Would that be fair?
Oh, okay. So this is probably just my own nervousness speaking, but I
Yeah.
think that would be an exaggeration.
I think many people who know you as a philosophical being. Oh no, he didn't go to the right academies. Who in their right mind would say that?
No, no, but it's just, I mean, you've studied philosophy. You've actually, it's just so, I studied film and media studies and
Okay.
the game design.
Yeah.
So it's just, I know what it means to have studied something
Sure.
because it's just, you've had a curriculum, you've had like written assignments and stuff. So all
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say is that I have not had, and of course, this is also me as a educator who's just like, okay, let's. But I read a lot. I will
Yeah,
give
no,
you
I
that.
appreciate I appreciate the distinction. I mean, of course it's important that all things aren't the same. You read a lot of philosophy and you think philosophically, right?
I would say so. When you're done, I have a question about your theory.
Go ahead.
Okay. You describe, which I think is correct, by the way, this notion that the more you learn French, the more you sort of become entrenched in that. And that will, of course, always isolate you from others in some extent. And I guess what you're going at there is, the other side of the coin when it comes to specialization. which again, it's incredibly useful to specialize yourself, but it does risk that you isolate yourself.
You
But
become an
may I just
insect, I would say. I wouldn't
uh,
say it. Robert Heinlein would say it.
right? But may I ask, Nico, what you're describing there with the person who learns French and becomes more and more isolated. So of course, our lives are only as long as however long they are. But what you're describing there is a risk, wouldn't you say? Like it is not a natural law that you learning French necessarily means that now you're so now the French language is so crystallized in your mind that you cannot fathom anything else. Like you could go on and learn a new language. Again,
Yeah.
life is not long enough for anyone to learn every language on earth
No.
unless you're a savant.
Uh,
But it's like there's something about the wording that you're using that to me sounds a little bit pessimistic, is all
okay.
I'm saying.
Okay.
I would agree that there is a risk. There certainly is. And fuck me, I feel like I meet a new person every day
Yeah.
that does go through exactly what you describe.
Mm.
Now they are a plumber or they are a user experience designer. And suddenly it's like, okay, so I learned this. And then I guess I'll just stay like this for the rest of my life. And to me, that's a fate worse than death.
Mm.
This might also be why I read a lot,
Mm.
because I don't know. I feel like I have many, I have at least a handful of lives yet to
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
at age 34. And this is going to sound a bit weird, and I really don't mean this to sound like come off in the weird way, but I even think that I am well aware that even me doing poetry right now, I'm pretty sure it will stay with me forever in some way. But it's like I would not. I must admit I do call myself a poet sometimes, but I really shouldn't. It's just when I write poetry, I'm a poet. That's for damn sure. Yes.
Right.
And when I teach, I'm a teacher. Sure. But to actually make it like, I'm XYZ, that's not very Taoistic, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I had an uncle, right, who was uh really like a titan of industry in his little town where he came from, and he would
Mhm,
always complain. He said, I built 4 churches, but no one calls me son church builder, and I
mhm,
built 8 bridges, but no one calls me son
yeah.
bridge builder, and uh,
He
you
didn't
know,
see a goat one day, did he?
and then I fuck one goat.
Yeah, exactly.
I
He
mean, are
fucked
you a
one
shit
goat.
taker when you take shits? Probably. Are you a shit taker 24/7? I don't know. I think you're a poet if you allow yourself to just say, okay, you know what? It's a title. It might not fit all the time. It's not a protective title. It's not like father. If you become
Right.
father once, you'll become father for the rest of your life. You might
I
have two
agree.
years where you're not a poet. Who knows?
Yes. And with the father point, I very much agree. I
Yeah.
don't have children myself, but I do have nephews, and that did feel quite permanent,
You're
I
an
must
uncle.
say.
There you go.
Yes. And I'm actually a godfather to the both of them too. So
Fantastic. Also, if we remember the words of another poet, one of the great ones, a rose is a rose by any other name. You might not think of yourself as a
by the
poet,
way,
but you can't
actually,
escape it. The rest of us will call you a poet, no matter what, because you write poetry and you perform it. Suck it up.
I will go so far as to say that there is a way of looking that could be that I certainly uh, experience as being in a poetic mode,
Mm.
and I do literally mean looking at something.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess that is the one where I can see like, yeah, okay, that's a poetic act, even though you're not physically writing anything.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, for me, this all goes back to Taoism and like be like water. It's like again, language is fucking amazing and it's so useful.
Mm.
Uh, but I mean, as I'm sure you are, Nico, I was 100% certain when I was 13 years old and just watched Requiem for a Dream on DVD that I was going to be a film director. I
Mm.
was 100% certain
Yeah.
that that was what was going to happen.
Yeah. You and I met in film school a few years later.
Yes, we did. We certainly did.
Yeah.
Hvad hedder det? And and then some years passed, and my father very sweetly at it may even have been my 13th birthday or my 14th, he gave me every single movie that Quentin Tarantino had made up to that point
Okay. Oh boy.
on DVD.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh wait, I want to be a writer, of course, as in a screenplay writer. And I mean, it's just and I could honestly go on like I have 10 things that I was that I wanted to be. And I don't know, I think I'm just at this point in my life, I am trying honestly not to do anything. So, I mean, I do have a job that I like very much, and I do have, a boyfriend and a lot of stuff that sort of, keep me upright because otherwise I would be quite depressed, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but I try honestly not to have any specific ambitions,
Yeah.
and that makes life a lot more interesting to me, at least.
Yeah. So you don't want to do anything?
No, I do, but I want to frame it as an exploration and not as a plan of action.
Mm.
So yes. I have a lot of things I want to explore. This is what I get to do with my writing.
Yeah.
I'm actually planning. I can show you this.
Please.
I
What do you have to plug?
no. I mean, this is not a plug. This is just a book I found.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
just maps
Yeah. Oh, the
of
map is not the
different
territory. I would like to remind you.
maps
Right? And fish can't see the water they swim in. So for all the
and
Taoists out there.
and more maps.
Okay. Oh, that's terrific.
And on my Instagram, which where I sometimes upload something to, that's me like really trying to be spontaneous. Like everything that's on my Instagram has been produced in no more than 3 minutes.
Can you
It
tell
is,
us what your tag is?
yeah, sure. K.R.A.H.M.
Okay.
M like Martin. And it's something where, yeah, I don't know. I just sort of call them workouts. I
Mm.
don't know if I do it explicitly in the post, but that's how I see it.
Mm.
Um, where am I going with this? No, yo. So basically, just like right now, something I want to explore is map-based poetry.
Mm.
Basically, so I
Mm.
look at a map and I write a poem, not about the map. It's not going to be something like, oh, language as a map or something. It's just like whatever this or that map gives me a spark of something. And actually, let me show you something else. And I know you know these, but if I'm really desperate, if the map doesn't even spark enough, then I'm going to use story cubes. Okay, you can't see it in the slide. Because the point is that the poem should not come from me. It should just come from some sort of, shooting star or something. Or is
Mm.
it, I don't know, waterfall or, okay, that is a shooting star. Whatever the case, the point is that it's an exploration. So yes, I want to explore, but I don't want to be like, ooh, I'm going to do map poetry because Venezuela was just bombed by the US and that makes me sound clever or something. Like I don't want to be conceptual. I just want to be experiential and explorative,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
So that is an intention, but it's not a plan of mine.
Yeah, I mean, I've Grant Morrison has a distinction between two tempers, and they say that they use it specifically in regards to how you can write superhero comics. But I like to
Mhm.
sort of think about it in life. Some people are anthropologists, like
Yes.
yourself. You
Mhm.
come, and every context you're in, you're sort of like, what do people do here? What are the rules? What?
Yes.
How can I sort of fit in? And then other
Yes.
people are missionaries. They come with their God-given truth. There's only one truth. It's the one I bring. Every single context is defined by what I want and how I want
Yes.
life to be, And you strike me very much as an anthropologist, which is nice. But you
But I
are
mean,
good. Listen, the good shit comes from you, though. Don't forget your ego.
no. I will honestly have to protest, Nikolai. I know that I am making decisions as I write it,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you must also know the feeling of after, so this is uh, after the writing phase has ended and the editing phase is about to begin,
Mm.
and you look at what is on the page. Surely you must also have the experience of like, where the fuck did
This
this
was
come from?
brilliant. How did I write this? This is
Exactly. Yes.
top level, top notch stuff. Yeah. But I
Yes.
allow myself to be
Exactly.
that. I allow myself also to be the product of the inspirations that I've sort of collected all throughout my life. It's based on my own taste and intellect, the same way you have taste and intellect as well.
Hmm. Um, I don't want this to sound like I'm comparing myself to Bob Dylan because I certainly am not. But like, he was asked in an interview, when was this? 15 or 20 years ago, where he was asked specifically about his output in the 1960s,
Yeah.
where of course it was just all killer, no filler. Like
Yeah.
like he did not write a single bad song. Like
Yep.
even if you listen to his demos on these bootleg releases, like nope, 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 it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And he was asked like, how did you first of all write so many good songs, and like how are you this persistent?
Yeah. Do the voice.
I can't.
Okay.
Uh, Hvad hedder det? Do you know what Bob Dylan said?
Yeah.
Like
You.
like
Isn't it just like he's just writing stuff and see what happens or whatever? Or he's not really trying or something of the sort.
So that's part of his
I'm not
answer,
really
but
trying.
but the first part that was racist somehow. Don't ask me how that was racist. You should be ashamed. My no, but the first thing he says is, "I honestly don't know." And then I believe like the next thing he says it was magic or something, which is
Yeah.
also an interesting. So it's just I don't know. It's just if I go for a walk and I take a turn that I
Mm,
haven't taken before,
mm,
or there's something about the weather, or there's something about a person who walks past the bench in front of the tree at that moment, and it just sort of strikes me. And of course, it's all random. All of it is random.
mm. Is it?
That the person is walking there and
Mm,
that it's snowing at that
you
time.
say it's random, but it's just because you might not be able to see the order in it.
That's a fair point. Okay, okay, sure, sure. Let me rephrase it then. Then I guess what I'm saying is just um, that these variables are
Yeah.
there at
Yeah.
that time. Also, that I am there and can actually have the first person view of whatever it is. That is the product of a couple trillion variables, if not more.
Mm,
And that's a source of gratefulness in my life that these things happen. But I would say that it is similar to writing
mm,
a poem, at least. I mean, um, so I don't know, and maybe all I'm doing here is also just indirectly describing to you how I write with as little fear as possible,
mm,
because I don't take it personally,
mm.
basically. Uh,
I think they who read good write good in a certain way. It's very reductive, but
mhm.
it's based on your vessel and what you're able to sort of pick up on and what you would like to be able to write. I think plays into it subconsciously as well.
That's true. That's
But
true. I
but
will say
listen,
that. Mm?
I just wanted to read something real quick. This is what I'm reading right now. I'm reading Prometheus Rising by Raw, which
What is that?
this is it's a book on evolution, I'd say, but also very much on um, social programming.
Okay.
Robert Anton Wilson is like a hero of many of my heroes. It's one of Grant Morrison's favorite people, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
he's sort of like the Yoda to my Ben Kenobi in a certain way.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I've wanted to read this for a long time. I know many people in our community sort of know this. And
Okay.
in this book, he describes these 8 circuits
Mhm.
um, that are, I guess it's taken from Korzybski, Anton Korzybski, if I'm not entirely mistaken, or Robert
Who is
Korzybski is
that?
his name. He was a guy who did general semantics. The idea here is that we sort of have the same way Freud talks about uh, developmental levels, ages,
Mhm,
or phases you go through. We have 8 of those, says
mhm,
Robert Anton Wilson, and he has just a lot of associations. It's a fun read. The
mhm,
science might be a little outdated, and for some people all his associations might be a little out there, but it's a fantastic read. But he has this quote of Robert Heinlein, which I've always loved, which I thought is very fitting. A human
mhm,
being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, design a building, con a ship, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve an equation, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly.
mhm,
Specialization is for insects.
mhm.
And I think Robert Heinlein was being very, very gracious when he said a man, because what I think he really meant was a writer has to be able to do all these things.
Right.
We
Mhm,
are the ones who will say, you know what, I'll let you people specialize. I let you people be engineers or chefs. I will be everything else, or
mhm,
I will be your field and so much more. I
mhm.
think the best writers are multifaceted, which is just a nice way to think of it. We need to sort of clap ourselves on the back once in a while. But I've read something out aloud. I would like for you to read something aloud, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure. Um, I would actually like. I'm going to put my glasses on now. Just a moment. Uh, I would like to read just a tiny paragraph from Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. And I know this was not what we agreed upon, Nico, when we were preparing, but it just came to me.
You do you.
There it is. Just because, are you familiar with Gustave Flaubert?
No, not really.
So he was this French guy writing in the 1800s, like mid 1800s, I believe, mid to late 1800s, and he had this principle called le mot juste, as in the right word. So he was such a perfectionist. He was a prose perfectionist that he would not, if the rumors are true, like he would not move on to the next sentence unless the words were just right. So he was a perfectionist, and this is just him. So he has now spent uh, 1 3/4 pages describing a, uh, a town called Yonville, and this is the last hvad hedder det, little paragraph of description. And to me, here there's something very interesting about, maybe also in connection with the quote that you just read. The writer shouldn't even like be a multi-specialist. No, sorry, I guess they should not be a specialist at all, but they should also be able to contain all kinds of different experiences. A little bit like Paul Auster can write a novel, Timbuktu, from the perspective of a dog or something.
Yeah.
So here's just a little passage where he's describing the town, and I would say that it is pretty fucking elegant right here. And this the paragraph that I'm about to read, even though it is a paragraph of a novel, like this is a novel. It's not a work of poetry, but it shows you something about when you really try to write um precisely, then you sort of penetrate into something that isn't even objective, but it is sort of experiential. And I at least feel like, especially with these strange just like little asides that he has, I think he had quite a lot of fun writing this paragraph that I will read right now. Beyond this, there is nothing to see at Yonville. The street, the only one, a gunshot in length, and flanked by a few shops on either side, stops short at the turn of the high road. If it is left on the right hand, and the foot of the St. John Hills followed, The cemetery is soon reached. At the time of the cholera, in order to enlarge this, a piece of wall was pulled down and 3 acres of land by its side purchased. But all the new portion is almost tenantless. The tombs, as heretofore, continue to crowd together towards the gate. The keeper, who is at once gravedigger and church beadle, thus making a double profit out of the parish corpses, has taken advantage of the unused plot of ground to plant potatoes there. From year to year, however, his small field grows smaller, and when there is an epidemic, he does not know whether to rejoice at the deaths or regret the burials. To me, that is, a little bit like. So originally, I planned to read from uh, these travel descriptions from a fellow named Matsuo Basho,
Yeah.
where he like explicitly is like, here is a prose description and here is a haiku,
Yeah. What?
and so on and so forth. But for me, like what Flaubert does right here is that prose that is sensual and explorative enough and inventive enough, that is, to me at least, a paragraph like what I just read blurs the line totally between prose and poetry, which is really interesting.
Kristian, thank you so much for a great talk. We talked a little bit about poetry. We talked a lot about philosophy. It
Yeah, I
was a
guess so.
pleasure. Will you be at any of the next events of Poetry Unleashed?
I hope so. Yes.
There is one at the 30th of January. It starts at 7. It is at HUSET. Then we have another one on the 17th of February, also at 7. That's the one I will be performing at personally. And
And where's that one at?
that's also at HUSET.
Okay, good.
So it's very exciting. We've a lot of good things happened last year. We expanded and we started this podcast, and it's all going very well. And this is our
Yeah, well
longest
done.
episode so far. I hope you had fun, and you're always very interesting to talk to. I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
And yeah, so people can follow you on Instagram, right?
I mean, if they want to, yeah.
If they want to, they can press the link we'll put uh,
Okay.
down below. But thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.